and that's the Gibbons collection of African American literature at the University of Minnesota.
Tell us more about this collection. What is that?
The Gibbons collection of African American literature is one of the top 5 collections of rare books, African American rare literature books in the country. Almost 10,000 volumes now, and signature related items, ephemera that's in the collection. Makes it extremely unique for scholars, for research, for an ongoing commitment. But I think, Alex, what we did, we wanted to make it a living collection, and there was the differentiation. It's not just something to be maintained and stored. It was meant to be a living collection that could be used. So books from the collection have been on tour around the country. We bring, the Gibbons Foundation brings writers and illustrators and playwrights and artists into the schools, into the communities themselves with this information, with this literature, and share it and inspire generations, younger generations, to take note and be a part of that.
How did the collection come into your possession in the first place?
It really came from a professor at the University of Minnesota, John Wright, and had heard that this specific part of the collection was available from a dealer in New York. And John thought that it should be here in Minnesota. I mean, he really was the vision behind it. And he approached the university. University approached our family to see if we would help provide the funding and raise the funds to acquire that collection.
And the way you approached this wasn't just taking your family money and purchasing this collection, right? Or
no, correct. Yeah. Well, what it was,
I'm curious about the community connection.
Yeah. We thought it should be this collection should be something that has meaning to the entire community and should be a gift from the African American community to the university. So we went and raised matching funds from 10 other African American families.
Wow.
And it was amazing. Everybody said, yes, count me in. We want to be a party to it. We want this to be there for our grandkids and generations to come. And so it has a very meaningful point of view in terms of African American philanthropy.
Yeah.
Because I don't think something like that had been tried before.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No, a whole community coming together, even limited as it was in numbers, but it was a community effort to the extent that it was all African Americans. And people still think and thought then that, we don't give money, we give money to church or something like that, which is okay, but we don't really do it in a philanthropic sense for a bigger community good. And so when we proved that was also a misnomer.
What made that different? Why did that happen?
Here's an opportunity to do something that's not been done, something that is so important to us as a community of color, and that we can generate more knowledge and pass that on in perpetuity, if you will, forever.
We could talk about this in the abstract, but I never will forget going down to the collection and holding the Phillis Wheatley first edition of African American poetry, probably published in the United States, in my hand.
Yeah.
And I mean, when that happens, there's nothing that can equal that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you love books and you love literature.
And you're absolutely right. And there was a period of time we were able to take works from the collection, literally works from the collection, on tour nationally through American Express and Target and others sponsoring. And I would bring the Phillis Wheatley book. And I would carry it in my briefcase. And I just, like, okay, I got the book. And I'd hold it up and show it, and everybody go, wow. And then the people at the library say, Archie, you can't take that book. There's only 10 in the world.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, this is territory that you opened up.
Yeah.
There is very few places like the Gibbons, very few collections like the collection here at the University of Minnesota, very few family foundations like the Gibbons Foundation. And there are very few guardians of African American literature, like the Gibbons Foundation is a guardian of African American literature, correct?
Correct. We are. And as a guardian, we bring it out. We keep promoting it as a necessary part of our culture and of life. And so it's always pushing to make sure people remember to use it as that, as a tool, as a leadership opportunity, but also a way, now in the whole world of education and, the reading levels and the problems we have as a society, if you can engage kids with reading about people and families that look like them, that talk like them, they take a little more interest. Or a detective story that Walter Mosley writes. There is some significance, and so it's a matter of constantly trying to keep that thought that this is about a community, it's about us as people, it's about us as growth, and it's about us as teaching and passing on.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming in for this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Archie Givens Jr., another amazing Minnesota first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Linda Finney was born and raised in Florida, where in 1972 she became the first woman patrol officer in Miami-Dade County. In 1985, she relocated to Minnesota, and in the next year joined the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension as a special agent. In 2004, Linda Finney was appointed to superintendent of the BCA. She was the first woman and the first African American to head that agency. Well, first of all, let's say welcome.
Thank you.
I'm here with Linda Finney, who was the first African American superintendent of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in Minnesota.
Yes.
Yes. Bring us to Minnesota.
Well, in 1983, I met a police lieutenant at a conference in Atlantic City, whose name was William Corky Finney. Well, that relationship grew into a romance and grew into a marriage proposal. And so that's how I wound up in St. Paul, Minnesota.
So tell us a little bit about what the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension does.
The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is a state agency. It's like the state FBI. It is many people within the public, the Bureau is invisible to them, although the Bureau touches their lives in many ways. It houses the Criminal Justice Information System where all the background checks are taken. It is the CSI, the Crime Scene Investigative Lab, the largest lab in the state. So all evidence related to major crimes go through the lab.
As you approached the appointment to superintendent from special agent in charge, even as special agent, are you aware of your African Americanness and the way in which it's being seen by other people? Are you aware of the groundbreaking sort of territory that you're entering into? Or are you just going to work every day?
It's not a day that there's no day that I'm not aware of the impact of my African Americanness and my gender. Those two things that are right there always. And I'm fully aware of how they impact people. In times, I've used that to assist me as an investigator. I do believe that the work, women and men approach the work differently. People of color approach the work differently.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? What is that difference, and what did you bring to that job? Let's look at it more from the superintendent's job. What do you bring to that job different than someone else might bring to that job?
The perspective that I bring is the perspective of a woman that grew up in a segregated South and grew up always aware of that difference. My family ingrained in me that whenever I went anywhere, I represented not only myself and my family, but my community. And I needed to put the best foot forward because many people I encountered may have never encountered anyone like myself, or their experience may have been so negative that you carried the weight of the perspective that people had about you, your community, in your actions. And so when you ask, was I aware of my blackness? Always. It's something that it was ingrained in me growing up in a South that was segregated, a Jim Crow South, and having to hold your head high, maintain your pride in the face of societal indignities.
Yes. And I mean, how does that relate, your Southern upbringing with the Midwestern?
With the Midwestern, it was very interesting. My husband told me when I first came here that, and I felt that I had encountered all types of discrimination and had overcome them growing up in a segregated South where things are right there in your face. Mm-hmm. And my husband said, there is discrimination in Minnesota. And if you can deal with it here, you can deal with it anywhere. He said, because it's very subtle, okay, very invisible. And so that was something new for me to encounter that and to understand how to deal with that. When I would do the training took me all over the state of Minnesota. I've been to places, my husband who's lived here all his life, I've been to towns that he's never even been to. Mm-hmm. And encountered people where it's kind of a daunting feeling when you realize that you're the only person of color within a 50, 100-mile range in the whole county. Mm-hmm. And people are driving by, stopping by, peeping and looking at you, you know, and little kids, you go into the store and they walk up and they touch your skin because they've never seen a dark person before. So, I mean, that was the kind of thing, and so I realized that how I behaved, what I did, what I said, was representative of my entire, not just my family, but the entire race, African Americans, you know.
That's a powerful responsibility. I know that you take it naturally. It's organic. It was how you were brought up. But don't you think, really, that's a lot? That's a lot to carry around to just, I mean, you're just trying to do a job, too,
well,
right?
Well, that's why I think that it's sometimes, yes, and I think that it's sometimes the burden that I think officers of color, whether they're African American, particularly if they're the first, or Latino, or Asian, often they bear that responsibility. And it is some of the things that cause some of the stressors. The high hypertension and all the other kinds of things, particularly if they have no outlet to be able to vent, and mentoring sponsors to tell you, how do I deal with this, you know?
One of the questions I've been asking is, what is the cost to being first?
The cost can be a number of things. A number of things is that isolation at times, subtle indignities that you have to bear.
You have to bear up.
You bear up, and sometimes because I am a teacher, I often try to use it as a teachable moment.
So, costs, then what are the rewards?
The rewards is that you can change attitudes. You can change. Many people have just not encountered. They've just never experienced. And this is a moment to teach them and let them know that we are, yes, we're different, but in many ways, we're very much the same. And that has been the reward for me.
So, as we sort of bring this to a close, the legacy of being first, how do you think about that now?
To say to those that come after me that it is possible. You know, prepare yourself and you can achieve. You can make that difference. And I'm a believer, and I think I take this ethic from my husband, who's been a tremendous mentor for me, is the concern for community. You can make a difference to those people who often are not in a position to help themselves as well. You can open a door a little bit. You can provide some information. You can show them that, you know, I came from this community. You know, I'm not privileged. I didn't come up from a privileged upper middle class family. I came from a little girl playing in the dirt in South Florida. And if I can, you can. I understand that it's difficult. But my parents have told me that, you know, it's worthwhile to push through the difficulty because you can come out on the other side a winner.
Wow, that's very well said. I just want to say it's been an honor to have this conversation with you, Linda Finney, another Minnesota African American first. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Arthur Art Blakey Jr. grew up in St. Paul watching the annual Winter Carnival parade. Little did he know that one day he'd be leading the procession as the first African American King Boreas Rex. But after a career as a Ramsey County Sheriff's deputy and a continuing tenure as the chief of police of the Minnesota State Fair, that's exactly what happened. I'm here with Arthur Blakey, who is the past King Boreas Rex 74th.
That's correct, yes.
Yes. First African American King Boreas of the St. Paul Winter Carnival.
Yes, we did a lot of history, and I found out I was the first African American, yes.
What did that mean to you?
It was great. The night I stepped out that stage and was crowned, it was like taking off into space.
Set the scene for me. Tell me I want to know, at the moment you were crowned, where were you? Set us up for where that happened.
Okay, it happened at the River Center, and it was on January 22nd. I'll never forget it, that day. I was actually 74 years old, and I was going into my 75th birthday, so I can remember I was Boreas Rex the 74th on my birthday. So I was that was a milestone.
Sort of meant to be, kind
It
of.
was meant to be, yes.
How does it work into your system where you could rise to the point where you would want to be King Boreas?
Well, I think if I back up a little bit, the only time a Winter Carnival was when we sat on the corner of Rondo and Rice Street with hot chocolate in a thermos that my mother would make for us and watch the parade.
So you saw this
to the parade, yes.
every year.
Every year. And then as I become a deputy sheriff, that was one of our volunteers. We volunteered for the daytime and nighttime parade. But once the parade was over, I'd go back home. I had nothing to do with the carnival, yes. And I never thought about it because it was cold. It was outside. It was outside, you know.
Precisely.
Yeah, and it was always ice and snow. But I can remember watching the parade. I can remember with the Elks Drum and Bugle Corps back in the 50s marching in that parade and being very cold, you know. And I'm saying, this is not for me, you know. I'm waiting for summer to come, you know, play some baseball, you know.
So, I mean, you mentioned your tenure as sheriff. Can you talk about your time in the Ramsey County Sheriff's?
Sure.
Yeah.
I started as a reserve deputy in 1965. That was another volunteer, non-paid position, and I joined that unit and was there from 1965, and then I became a full-time deputy in 1970. And I happened to be the first African American again to be a patrolman at Ramsey County Sheriff's Office.
When you became the King Boreas, I mean, did you feel like you had trailblazed, opened up a territory that had not been opened before? What did you think about that?
I didn't feel that way at first, but halfway through my reign, I felt as though I had opened up a little path. Because when you go to these parades all over the state of Minnesota and all over the counties, and you see people just run up and take your picture and say, you got to be the first guy to ever wear to be Boreas. And I didn't look at it at first. I said it was just a good time to volunteer and give something back to the community. And I figured if I volunteered and started being part of Winter Carnival, I could go back to my Summit University area and get those people involved. In fact, when I was Boreas, same as when I was West Wind, it's the first time that the Winter Carnival had been in the Rondo Day Parade. And now they go every year. They go back, along with the Vulcans and along with the royal family. They go to all the parades now.
So tell me about your travels as King Boreas. I mean, really, you must have had some fascinating moments.
Had some very fascinating moments. We went all the way from Winnipeg, Canada, which is the day that we walked the river walk in Winnipeg. It was 22 below zero. And you walk that in your cape and with your queen on your arm and your whole royal family, and you walk this river. Then you walk to parade, so we leave there about 4 o'clock in the evening, and it's like 10 o'clock at night before you get inside again. But they give you plenty of hot chocolate and other libations to keep you warm. Which I happen to be a teetotaler, so I use the hot cider and hot chocolate most to keep myself warm. Then we went far south as Bradenton, Florida, to their festival down there. Macon, Georgia, to their festival there. They have a great festival. In Pasadena, California, to the Rose Bowl. And this is all on on you. You're the one that have to pick up the tab.
This story is fascinating.
It's once you and when my wife and I decided to be a part of the Winter Carnival, we said if we're going to volunteer, we're going to make sure that we have a good time, and we're going to make sure that we don't miss any appearances. So with my wife on one arm and my queen on the other arm, we went everywhere.
Royalty.
Royalty, yes.
All right, so you didn't start off thinking you were going to be a first necessarily, but you are now past King Boreas 74th. What do you think is the legacy of that?
That's kind of tough. I think I just want people to not look at me as being the first, but look at me as a good volunteer, a good person, a people person. Look out for my fellow man. I think when those days come and they can say, well, Art Blakey was not just about himself. I've always tried. I've got I think myself and Bill Finney I got a portrait in my office, and you might have seen it where reaching down, bringing somebody up. Because my dad always told me, when you go up, you got to come down that same street. When you come home at night, you can't go around the back door. You got to come through that front door. So I want people to understand that my legacy will be that I was a straight shooter. I love my people. I love all people.
Excellent. What a legacy to have.
Yeah.
This has been a conversation with Art Blakey, past King Boreas Rex 74th. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lucky for us that Robin Robinson made her way to the Twin Cities circuitously from Chicago, where she was born and raised. Robin made her mark as the first African-American anchor of a primetime news program at KMSP-TV. In that capacity, she won many awards, including an Emmy, not to mention the hearts of many Minnesotans. And then, in 2010, she ran as a candidate for lieutenant governor. Now a designer and entrepreneur, Robin continues her journey. We're here now with Robin Robinson, who, by all accounts, is the first black anchor, African-American anchor of a local news show in the state of Minnesota.
I am the first African-American woman to anchor a primetime newscast.
Exactly. What does it mean to be first?
You know, it's not something that I sought. I have to be honest, when I was a child and I saw women like Janet Langhart, who came before me, and Carol Simpson, I said, I want to be the first African-American woman to anchor a Chicago newscast.
You said that.
I said that to myself. I mean, I've
what
known
age?
this is what I've wanted to do for ever since I was about maybe 12 or 13
Really?
years old, yeah. That's all I've ever wanted to do.
Wow.
All I've ever wanted to do. Because, you know, when I grew up, which was the late 60s, early 70s, the only people you ever saw on the air doing anything of note was either dancing, singing, acting, or playing a sport.
Yes.
And if you saw a black person do anything significant, you got on the phone, you called family members
Yes.
and friends, and,
Yes.
ooh, girl, turn on Channel
Yes.
2, turn
Yes.
on Channel
Yes.
9, look what's happening.
Yes.
This is history, you know. And so
It's true.
it's true. So when I saw my first black correspondent, which was a sister named Michelle Clark, and she was the first black woman correspondent for CBS, I was enchanted. I mean, that's what I knew I wanted to do. I saw Carol Simpson, I knew that's what I wanted to do, because here were these elegant black women who, it wasn't Lola Falana, you know, it wasn't Diane Carroll, It was a sister who had command and authority on a set by herself that could tell you about the who, what, when, where, and why, what's happening in the world. She knew about math and science and arts and religion. And she was classy, and she was dignified, and she didn't have her breasts hanging out or her butt hanging out.
Wow.
And I said, that's what I want to do.
This recognition of what you wanted to do in your life, how do you track that? How do you, when you think back now, how did you get where you are from where you started? I mean, you had great parents, you had an engaged household,
Right.
you were a good student,
Right.
inquisitive, perhaps even precocious. How do you go from there to being Anchor?
I really think I have to give a lot of praise to my parents, because we had a mantra in our family that Robinsons never give up. And that's something my father told us repeatedly. And failure was not an option in our house. And I know there's a lot of discussion these days about tiger moms and how hard you push children, but I don't think my parents pushed us any harder than we wanted to be pushed. You know, we had role models ahead of us, and they pointed out every role model. And they said that, you know, oftentimes role models are not the people that you see on TV or in the movies. Role models are your everyday people that make it, just make it in this world when all the odds are against you. And Alex, you know that just by statistics alone, growing up in inner city Chicago, I should have been an addict, I should have been on aid, I should have multiple children that are going in and out of the state system.
Yes.
I should be in prison or I should be dead.
Yeah.
And just to have parents that reinforce to us oftentimes that people bled and sweat for the opportunities that we were given because we were children of change. I was born in the early 60s and everything was happening, you know, the civil